Hi everyone, I'm Kezia, the Deputy Editor of Professional Beauty, and I'm here with the wonderful Trevor from S Skincare to talk all about the microbiome and the gut skin axis. Hi Trevor, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
So, when did you get obsessed and interested in the microbiome?
So around 2010, the Human Microbiome Project put out its first findings, and it became clear that there were more microbes in a human than there are human cells. And to be honest, that was quite a shock. And I come from a chemistry background. It meant that we were treating an ecosystem. We weren't treating a single species. And yeah, that was quite a mind blow. Yeah, but I've kind of been obsessed with it ever since.
And when did you start learning about the crossover between the microbiome, the gut, and the skin?
So that became clear pretty early on. They were already in those days speaking about the gut-mind axis,
Mm.
and it became clear that the lung microbiome, the oral microbiome, the vaginal microbiome, the skin microbiome, and they were all interconnected and interrelated. Yeah.
Mm. And what kind of things do you notice in the skin that are affected by the gut and the microbiome? Are there any signs and symptoms on the skin that can tell you that there's an issue with the gut?
Yeah, there are a lot of, I mean, if you have what's called dysbiosis in your gut, in other words, a dominance of one species or dominance of the wrong species, or the absence of a particular microbial partner, it often shows up on skin. So rosacea is a good
Mm.
example that can be often treated successfully with oral antibiotics. But yeah, it's the immune system and the immune system's level of activity that's the primary driver.
Mm.
So if your gut microbiome is disrupted, your immune system goes on to high alert, and that isn't localized. That extends to skin. It extends all around the body, and the same for skin actually.
Mm.
So the skin surface area is the largest contact surface that we have with microbes.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've read in the textbooks that your skin surface is 2 square meters. Well, it isn't. As soon as you take into account all the pilosebaceous units, all the sweat glands and apocrine glands, all of a sudden the surface area expands enormously, and it ends up being around 100 square meters, which is a lot larger than the
Wow.
gut. So everybody's talking about the gut skin axis. What's going to come over the next while is the skin gut axis. You will start understanding
Mm.
how the skin impacts on all the other microbiomes. But it's just that the skin microbiome research is about a decade behind the gut microbiome research.
Wow.
And that's largely just because of the sample sizes. So, when you're sequencing DNA, and to be honest, you have to sequence DNA. You can't see these things through a microscope. When you're sequencing DNA, you need volume. So obviously, no one's particularly attached to their turds. So getting volume there is kind of easy. But ask somebody for a 4 millimeter punch biopsy of their skin, and they're probably going to have
Probably
something
more
to say.
difficult to get
Yeah,
hold of.
yeah. So when we sequence the skin microbiome, we use a swab. So we take
Mm.
a swab and rub it backwards and forwards on the surface of skin. And if you think about it, think about how tiny that sample size is. I mean, what you're collecting is mostly sebum and human cells,
Mm.
um, and it's about half the cell volume that is microbial. So you're sequencing literally picograms of DNA. And that technology is fairly new, so yeah, it's going to take a while to catch up with the gut microbiome, but I do believe that the skin microbiome will end up being as important, if not more important, than the gut microbiome to overall health. Yeah,
Wow, that's so interesting.
yeah.
Um, any new developments in research that have been particularly interesting pertaining to the gut skin axis in recent years?
So, I mean, if there's a rock star laboratory on the planet, it's in San Diego when it comes to DNA sequencing. And they've just shown, well, it's the combination of Richard Gallo and Rob Knight that have just shown that skin injury impacts on the gut microbiome. So
Wow.
that's kind of weird. I didn't, I don't think too many people were seeing that one coming. There was another paper showing that sun exposure impacts the gut microbiome really
Mm.
in a very meaningful way. Whether that's vitamin D driven or not remains to be seen. Yeah, I think there are a lot of skin gut impacts, and there are a lot of gut skin impacts. So, for example, the use of live bacteria to treat eczema and psoriasis, for example,
Mm.
that's those, and it's quite interesting. The first scheduled drugs now, so oral bacterium, they've stopped using the term probiotic largely because the skincare industry have butchered that term so badly. I mean,
Oh,
a live a probiotic should be a live bacterium that is, or a live microbe that is used to for a beneficial effect. But the skincare industry kind of used the term very, very loosely.
got
And
it.
yeah, but so the scheduled versions are now called live biotherapeutics to
Mm.
get away from that term. And yeah, so the first scheduled versions are available now. Look, those ones are largely to treat irritable bowel, but there are also drugs in phase 2 trials that are live biotherapeutics that are applied topically.
Mm.
And some of those are targeting rheumatoid arthritis. So that's kind of counterintuitive that you'd put a topical product on to treat your rheumatoid arthritis. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Going back to the butchering of prebiotics in the skincare industry, can you talk about that a bit more? What's happened? Is it because obviously the when you buy probiotics that you need to keep them in the fridge, right, for them to be live and the bacteria to work? And I guess if you put them in a skincare formulation, is that what you're saying?
Yes. I mean, well, I mean, it took us 2.5 years to build a product with a live that had a shelf life, a live product that had a shelf life. And pretty much all skincare products contain preservatives. Preservatives kill microbes. So the maxim in the industry at the time was, you can't do live probiotics in skincare products because you need a preservative. So we were dangling on the bottom end of Africa. Nobody told us that it wasn't possible, so we we uh, we did it. We found a way of encapsulating bacteria and an airless glass formulation that managed to keep these things alive for 18 months without refrigeration. But there've been very few companies that have actually pulled that off.
Mm.
There was a company called Mother Dirt that out of MIT that did it. There's another company in Belgium called Yun. But to be honest, there's a handful of companies in the world that can offer a live product for topical application. So what the industry was doing was using the term very loosely to refer to microbes that had been killed, or in some cases, microbes that had been torn apart, or in some cases, just the ferment, the broth that's left after you take the microbes out. So, kind of, yeah, definitely bending the definition.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
diluting the message, I guess, and the importance of those bacteria, right?
Yeah, look, it's coming right now. So the term postbiotics, I'm sure you've come across, that's being used more to clarify that they aren't alive. And this is on the back of some
Mm.
pretty big lawsuits in the US. So a couple of companies have been pulled up on their use of the term. There've been class action lawsuits that involved quite large settlements. So I guess the industry is now doing a rewind,
Yeah.
and the term hopefully regains some of its meaning. But to be honest, I've kind of seen this happen before. We, we were part of the early organic movement, and at the beginning everybody was organic, and they were taking one drop of organic lavender oil and putting it into a 2-ton batch and calling the batch organic. It's but slowly people get pulled up and the term organic regained its meaning. And I think the same will happen with the term probiotic, but I do like the term biotherapeutic. It's more of a treatment headspace, and
Yeah.
it's a little clearer. Yeah,
No, I do
yeah,
too. That's
yeah.
it. We're only using biotherapeutic from now on. Um, so talking about your brand S,
Yes.
so are you saying that you started it and it wasn't a microbiome based brand and then you re-geared? Is that right?
Yeah, we, I know I came from a background of drug discovery, but the brand was a little hippie to start off with. And I guess we've seen a lot of our competitors drift from, being very medical aesthetics driven to then being more professional to then being more retail and eventually ending up in full retail. And that is the general move. We are going in exactly the opposite direction. so, we started out a little bit retail and then we repurposed for professional skincare. And now we're really going after the medical aesthetic space. I mean, I started the company largely because I didn't want to pursue an academic career, but I still wanted to research. So the company exists largely as an excuse for a research team to operate, yeah, which is perfect for me.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
It seems well, I think having a skincare brand seems like a really fun thing to do, but also there's so much, I think, beauty and skin, there's so much development in it, there's so much research to be done. So yeah, it must be really exciting. So when did you start incorporating biotherapeutics
Yeah.
into your skincare?
So we launched that in February of 2015.
Okay.
So quite a while ago.
So you're
Um,
quite early, an early adopter of that, right?
Much too early, unfortunately for us.
Okay.
Nobody understood what we were doing, um, but that's good. It's given us a runway to groom the products, groom the strains. Well, it's not easy to put live bacteria in and keep them alive in a
Mm.
product, but the strain is absolutely critical. You think you can just grab some gut bacteria and throw it in there. It doesn't work. There's some intricacy to the strains that appear on skin versus the strains that appear in gut. So
Mm.
yeah, there's a lot of good work on that, and it's just been an absolute mind blow to see how the technology's shifted. I mean, we've been sequencing now for a long time, and we offer a sequencing service to our clients. So we can send you a swab. You can take a swab, and we'll tell you exactly which microbes are growing on your skin, and
Wow,
and
that's
and what it
fascinating.
means. But that was all what was called 16S sequencing, and we've got a massive database of that. So when you're invested in a technology, it's hard to move away. But with 16S, you can see what genus the bacterium is, but you can't see the exact species. Uh, so it's kind
Mm.
of getting a really blurry picture. It's like looking through a telescope and going, yeah, it's a bird. I'm not sure though what kind. So, yeah, with the new tech that's come out now, it's called shotgun metagenomic sequencing, and
Mm.
we can see all the way down to the strain. We know exactly what kind of C. acnes strain you have. And I mean, I'll give you an example. We had a swab done recently, and so this woman had been battling with her skin for like 6 months. And when I say battling, like her face was
Cystic.
really, really falling apart. It was
Mm.
not good. Um, and I mean, it was diagnosed multiple times, but she'd been on an antibiotic for 3 months. And in desperation, she asked us to sequence her, and we used shotgun, and we got 72% of her skin microbiome was a species called Corynebacterium bovis. So this is a microbe that infects, it causes mastitis in cows. And if you go to the literature, you'll see it's just not a known human pathogen. It doesn't occur in humans, right? So her doctor, in I mean, in full disclosure, couldn't quite identify what the problem was, but put her on the 6-month course of tetracycline, and that is the wrong drug.
Mm.
But once you've got the data and you're sitting with this in front of you, you can go, oh, okay, well then you need amoxicillin. It's a 5 to 7 day course. This thing will be fixed. So I think what's going to happen in the next while is that you're going to see this shotgun metagenomic sequencing
Mm.
coming through as a major diagnostic tool. Look, it's still expensive. I mean, we do bulk, and it still costs us $250 a sample. So eh, not cheap,
Mm.
but if I was really battling, I would certainly pay the pay the
Yeah,
cash
it's like
required.
a new step in personalized medicine, personalized skincare. Obviously, personalized medicine has become huge, but I think now people want to know exactly what's going on. And I think that a lot of it comes from their gut, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. There are huge differences in gut microbiomes, and we have lost a lot of our microbes.
Is that is that due to modern living, would you say?
I mean, if
What we eat, how we behave?
yeah, I mean, we've sampled hunter-gatherers, so the Hadza group and the Himba up in northern Namibia, and
Mm.
you look at those microbiomes, they have a huge diversity and a completely different skin microbiome to us. And they have absolutely no acne, like 0 cases.
Wow.
There's no what we would call sensitive skin. There's no atopic dermatitis. As a matter of fact, it doesn't look like there's any inflammatory skin disease at all. So all the things that plague us, and I mean, 85% of kids now getting acne, and they have zero. So we're definitely doing something wrong. Uh,
In
you
your
know,
opinion, what do you think it is that the Western world is doing so wrong when it comes to their gut and how that's affecting their skin?
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at how to think that through, we try to mimic the conditions for which we've evolved. I mean, we all know what a good diet is, right? It's a whole food
Mm.
diet that involves very little processed food, and it's the same for skin, right? Like, what would be you would use a whole system, not a highly synthetic system. Every time we take isolated molecules and apply them to these complex ecosystems, we end up with unintended results, or we end up with a short-term benefit with a long-term impact. So I think, yeah, I think you ask what they're doing differently. They're exercising every day. They're
Yeah.
out in nature every day. They're eating a whole food diet. They're doing everything differently almost. It's like, so, for us Westerners living in the modern world, though, I wish I could be out in nature every day and hunting for, whole food that's, with people I love. But that's what I do when I go on holiday.
Right?
Yeah.
Is I feel like people talk a lot about longevity, and they say things like connection, a good diet, obviously exercise, being out in nature. These are all things that help you live a long life, help you live a healthy life. And it's crazy that in this Western world, we have to like pay for that, or we go on these expensive retreats to kind of imitate it.
Yeah.
And when yeah, it's kind of it's basic stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's fascinating.
Rob Knight talks about catching good germs. So he's one of the top microbiome researchers in the world, and they said to him, "So, how do you apply your research? What are the things you do?" And he said, "Well, look, of all the microbes on the planet, 0.001% are pathogenic. So
Hmm.
overwhelmingly, the germs that I'm exposing myself to are either neutral or beneficial. So, when you go into nature and you expose yourself to the soil microbiome, there are like thousands of potential new partners for you. And they asked him what he would how does he apply this in his daily life, and he said, well, he tries to shake hands with healthy people. It's like,
Mm.
because your chances of catching a good partner from that person are there, right? Like, but I think it's our lack of contact with nature, and it sounds super hippie, but Like every plant has its microbiome, the soil has its
Yeah, yeah,
microbiome.
yeah.
There are millions of opportunities there for long partnerships with microbes. Yeah,
And maybe even like the COVID situation could have made things a lot worse, right?
definitely.
Because like now we're like scared to touch each other. Like I'm really funny about washing my hands after touching anything, which is maybe a good thing, but also maybe not such a good thing. Would you say?
Yeah, well, Richard Gallo's lab did a really interesting experiment. They took somebody with a glove, so this was a
Mm.
person serving food, and they exposed them to E. coli, so not a good microbe. Well, some strains aren't good anyway. They had that person touch something with E. coli on it, and then keep the glove on, and with their other hand, they touched the E. coli and didn't. And there was no glove, and they didn't wash their hands. The lifespan of the E. coli with the glove was like
Oh,
5 times higher
wow. Yeah.
compared to touching with just skin, which killed the E. coli pretty quickly. So, I mean, that's one of the basic principles of your skin microbiome is that it fights for its niche, right? Like it doesn't want bad guys on there, and it's pretty aggressive. So, if you have a good covering of microbe on you, that's your first barrier function. That's the first. I mean, those guys don't want to give up their space. I mean, we're providing free food in the form of sebum and
Mm.
dead skin cells. They don't want to give up their space. So when a bad guy arrives there, they attack quite hard.
Yeah.
So I mean, they did that work with COVID as well. So they took a COVID virus, they put it on a recently sanitized hand, and I think it lasted 4.5 hours, somewhere around there. It was 30 minutes on a hand that hadn't been sanitized. So if you think about it, it's called competitive exclusion. If you think about it, if you strip away all the microbes on skin, you kind of create a playing field that favors opportunists, because you've killed
Mm.
all the guys that should be living there, and now there's food and space. Maybe it's not something that we should be doing too often. And as a matter of fact, we're running a study at the moment at the University Hospital in Amsterdam, looking at nurses with eczema. Because of all the hand washing, they end up with eczema a lot. So yeah, that study will be starting soon. So it'll be an interesting outcome. We'll be using live biotherapeutics to again get live microbes onto the skin to get good coverage, so that when a bad guy arrives, it's got some competition, right? Yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah.
fascinating.
There's definitely a space between intensive care and the home environment that you don't want to be too sterile.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's kind of interesting to just keep, this. Like I said, I come from a chemistry background, so I've been learning about the microbiome for the last 15 years now, and it still seems like I find new things all the time. But when they map rooms, it's kind of interesting to see where the huge microbial loads are. So, in your kitchen, for example, like what do you think is the space with the highest microbial load?
Hmm. Handles, like
Yeah,
cupboard handles.
it's the dish towel.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense,
And that's the
actually.
thing you're using to clean everything else.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Is it the dampness that helps like
It's
breed that
damp, it's
bacteria?
damp, it's dirty, it's picking up a food source all the time. It's not sterilized very well when it's washed. It's just so and yet, I mean, we're all fine, right? Like
Yeah.
it's and as a matter of fact, so the little anomalies like that, are worth noting. But yeah, I think, they're saying now even that some of the major benefits that come from eating local food, organic food, it's a lot to do with the fact that they're not hyper washed and sterilized.
Mm.
That there's still some dirt on there, and that you get to take those microbes in. I certainly made my kids eat dirt every now and
I love that.
then.
Yeah, I think people are really. When I was a kid, my mum is a bit older than other mums, so she wasn't really funny about germs. She wasn't a germaphobe or anything like that. And I think that, yeah, like having as a child, especially, that's when you build a lot of your resources. Is that, am I right in saying that?
Very much so. Yeah, those first 2 years are critical. And I mean, you can see it in the eczema rates and the acne
Mm,
rates as well. If you're exposed to a lot of microbes in your early life, those are partnerships that your immune system now recognizes. So each of those microbes that you accumulate become a potential partner,
mhm,
and perform a function on skin. Perhaps they produce lactic acid to keep the pH down. Perhaps they keep Staph aureus under control. But you're providing, as I said, food and shelter. You expect services in return. There should be no microbes living on you rent free. It's like, yeah.
love that.
So, yeah, those first 2 years are critical. So you'll see eczema and acne rates are way higher in urbanized space versus
Mm,
rural space. And as a matter of fact, a friend of mine, Chris Cullowort, did a gradient from Rio out to the forest, and there's like this perfect gradient that goes
wow.
from zero acne and zero eczema in hunter gatherers, and then as you get closer and closer to the city, the rates just go up and up and up and up, and the diversity of the skin microbiome drops as people lose these key partners. Yeah.
So what have you done for your kids then to kind of help build their microbiomes, or what would you suggest someone do for their child at a young age, other
She's
than just throwing them out in the garden and
Yeah,
saying
that's the
we're
first thing.
playing dirt? Well, I suppose it's a great thing. It's one of the best parts of childhood that I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
is missing now.
And I think, I mean, yeah, I spent some time in the East, and it's like seeing like those, like in the middle of Hong Kong, for example, where those kids are growing up in these like tower blocks, and
Mm,
they're missing contact with a huge number of microbes. I mean, in this room, there's no real source of nutrient for microbes, whereas in nature, in the same space, would be teeming with like literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of species, and we would be in contact with those all the time, right? Like it's so when they talk about forest bathing, I know it sounds super esoteric, but like there is an element of like
yeah,
microbes landing on you and potentially growing on your skin, and that's a good thing. I mean, in urban spaces, all the microbes we come into contact with are human, so they're less likely to be what we call commensals. I mean, so they'll be more likely to be pathogenic, is what I was trying to say.
hmm hmm
The chances of that microbe being a potential pathogen are there, and your immune system responds accordingly. So you end up with this activated immune system and this subclinical inflammation because of that.
yeah.
This sensitized skin because of that.
And a lot of the, would you say a lot of the, or the most common skin conditions that we deal with in the Western world, which I'm going to say are eczema, acne, psoriasis, right?
Mm.
Um, a lot of those have a huge connection with the gut, don't they? Something that I learnt recently, that blew my mind, which makes a lot of sense, is that psoriasis actually goes very deep into the skin and into the organs, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's so fascinating. So would you say that a lot of those conditions, if we dealt with gut, we could deal with those in a better way? The gut health, the gut skin access.
Yeah, I think the way you deal with the gut is largely with diet,
Mm,
and I guess I think it's a whole approach, though. To be honest, you've got to deal with skin properly, you've got to deal with the gut properly, and all of that will get to the root cause of all of these diseases, which is an underlying inflammation. Um, that chronic level of inflammation is prevalent in all industrialized societies in the world. And it's absent in these hunter gatherers that
mm,
have a full complement of their microbiome. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. This one of the species that we're looking at now is a variant of Bordetella. So we're hunting this new potential, um, and we found it in hunter gatherers. Literally every single hunter gatherer has it. And we were trying to find it in our European samples. And we looked through, and this is with the shotgun data, we looked through more than 250 samples from the UK. and one person had bordetella. So and that's, I mean, that's a partner that we should definitely have on skin all the
Wow,
time.
that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So
So,
yeah.
where are you getting this good bacteria from for your skincare?
So
Are
we
you getting it from hunter-gatherers?
no, we actually, so that's the when we're hunting, we're using sequencing techniques, and then we use culture so that we can
Mm,
grow them up. And yeah, we get them from healthy volunteers that
wow.
that volunteer their microbiomes. Not from hunter gatherers though, because there are very tight intellectual property rights around those groups. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is fair, I guess. I mean,
Yes.
they've stayed away from a lot of the things that are causing society to be in the problems they are now, and I guess we'd look at that maybe years ago and say that's not a way to live, but now it's something that we're kind of hugely envious of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's so cool that there are those societies out there that are just living so much better than us, and yeah, and but we see ourselves as kind of a more evolved society, but what's that actually doing for us? Which is kind of
Yeah.
hilarious, right?
Yeah.
What about prior to aesthetic treatments? What role does probiotics, prebiotics play with like preparing the skin for an aesthetic treatment?
So I guess at the beginning of one of these treatments, you want skin health to be optimal, and you want reduced inflammation. So you don't want to be going into one of these treatments with sensitized skin with a highly reactive immune system. So I guess using whatever techniques possible to calm skin and prepare the canvas for these treatments obviously improves outcome and reduces risk.
How does the skin microbiome influence the development of acne?
So, I mean, we've all heard P. acnes causes acne. That's obviously not correct. Skin is dominant, so your skin and my skin will both be dominated by C. acnes.
Mm.
And as a matter of fact, there are only a handful of strains out of the more than 100 strains that are even linked to acne. So, yeah, the picture's obviously a lot more complex than just this one microbe causing the disease. Um, yeah, I think what's pretty clear now is that there are multiple interactions involved. So malassezia, it's one of the yeasts that grow on your skin. That's probably involved. Staph aureus might be involved. So yeah, the skin microbiome is clearly linked to acne. People with acne have a different microbiome, but it's very, very tight. It's a strain level discussion when it comes down to C. acnes. And there's some pretty good advances in the sequencing technology that'll allow us to see at the strain level what's going on with acne now.
Mm. So, why do conventional acne treatments often fail to give long term results?
So the conventional treatment procedure, treat hyperkeratinization, kill P. acnes, C. acnes. I mean, killing C. acnes is killing, like, I mean, for both of us, our skin microbiome is probably 60, 70% C. acnes.
Mm.
That's like taking out a pretty large chunk of your microbiome. So, yeah, and then the other technique is to try to stop oil production. A lot of the treatments will just try to shut down sebum production. Uh, I mean, obviously, when things revert back to normal, you would expect acne to come back. It's actually kind of amazing that they work at all.
Mm.
So yeah, I think as the microbiome movement gains momentum, and as the messaging becomes clearer, as because C. acnes clearly doesn't cause acne. It's a tiny percentage of the cause. So yeah, I think as that movement gains traction, people will start treating it in a more long-term way and in a more sustainable sort of way. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so how can practitioners support clients with persistent breakouts without overdrying their skin barrier?
So, I mean, the first thing they can do is back off on the surfactants. So, harsh cleansers, actually end up stimulating sebum production because your skin's responsive. So, you strip the sebum off the surface. Your skin's just going to boost production, and that puts you in this cycle. I mean, you don't want massive sebum production if you're trying to avoid acne. So we try to make certain that there's a very mild cleansing regime, and actually in the mornings only cleansing with lukewarm water. Um, the other thing is to feed the microbiome. So with oil-based prebiotics, there's techniques like using sapienic acid and other fatty acids that are amazing at controlling acne. And then, yeah, using lactobacillus has been shown to be quite effective with treating inflammatory comedones.
Mm.
Surprising, we expected some result on non-inflammatory comedones, but we haven't been successful in treating non-inflammatory comedones. We've ended up targeting inflammatory comedones only. Um, but there are some strains, not us, not our group, but there are some groups that have used Cutibacterium C. acnes itself, beneficial strains of that to treat non-inflamed comedones, which has been successful. So it seems as though you would use the lactobacilli to treat inflammatory comedones and C. acnes to treat non-inflammatory comedones.
Let's talk about sensitive skin. I feel like a lot more people have sensitized skin. A lot of companies, a lot of brands are talking a lot more about sensitive skin. It seems to be a big issue for the population. Um, how is the skin microbiome involved with that sensitivity and things like atopic dermatitis?
So around 70% of the market now considers themselves to have sensitive
Mm,
skin. And that is indicative of a weakened barrier. So, skin's sensitive because things are crossing the barrier and triggering the immune system. And a large part of barrier is the microbiome. It should be your first line of defense. So if a pathogen or a toxin is going to get through skin, it should have to cross your microbiome first. And that's not just on the surface. Sensitivity actually extends deep into the pilosebaceous unit, where if you have a breakdown of barrier function, you end up with acne. And that barrier surface is actually much larger than we think it is. So I guess the microbiomes, a strong microbiome will give you that first layer of defense and improve sensitivity that way, but it'll also communicate with your skin's immune system. If your microbiome's healthy, it's pinging your immune system all the time to say, all's well, no need to panic, and you can keep barrier in place. It's only when there's a pathogen that it will voluntarily break barrier function to get the immune system onto the surface to control who's there. And that should be reserved for absolute emergencies, not for everyday life. Yeah.
mhm.
And I think we're living in, with our immune systems in that like borderline emergency realm all the time, so that there's this constant subclinical inflammation. And I think it's critical that we get our microbiomes back to healthy, to get back to decent barrier function and skin of optimal health. Because any inflammation is accelerating aging, and that's the last thing we want, right?
Yeah, inflammaging.
Yeah.
We're hearing a lot about that at the moment.
Yeah.
How can probiotics help strengthen and soothe sensitive skin then?
So again, by competitive exclusion. So if you dominate the space, so if you apply a large number of good microbes, then when the bad guys arrive, there's no space and no nutrient, and the good guys generally fight. They will protect their niche, so they'll clean out the bad guys pretty quickly. So yeah, that's probably one of the best ways. But the other thing is to just feed up the existing microbiome using prebiotics. Yeah.
Prebiotics, probiotics. I think we know a lot more about them now, and more people on average are taking them to help with their skin, help with other issues as well. Um, what do you feel like we're getting wrong about pre and probiotics?
So I think, uh, I mean, we're a quick fix society. People just want to take a pill.
Mm,
What pill must I take to fix this? It's not that easy. Look, probiotics work, and they help a lot of conditions. Same with prebiotics. You can take inulin and fructooligosaccharides and others, and those also work. They favor the right microbial species. And it's the same on skin. You can add probiotics and prebiotics, but yeah, it's a lifestyle thing that's going to have to shift. I mean, if you really want to change your gut microbiome, you need to change your diet. You start eating a whole food diet, and it can be varied. I mean, the Hadza in Tanzania. I mean, their gut microbiome shifts completely between summer and winter. You know, in
Mm.
summer they battle to hunt because there's so much leaf, and so they're eating honey, berries, roots. So their gut microbiome looks completely different to ours over the summer months. But they keep those species, the other species, because when winter comes, they're hunting and they're eating almost exclusively meat. And then their gut microbiome starts looking a little bit more like ours, looks still more diverse, but nevertheless. So what I'm trying to say is there's no perfect diet. It's not like, oh, you must eat this diet for your microbiome. Just eat a whole food diet that's got a lot of innate fiber of varying chain lengths. So I think everybody's after the pill. It's a little more complex than that. And it's the same on skin. I mean, the prebiotics for your skin, like what's the main food source that your skin microbes are eating? They're eating sebum.
Mm.
So don't take some gut prebiotic and expect that to work on skin. Look, weirdly, we did it and it worked, which is kind of counterintuitive. But we've shifted very strongly now in favor of oil-based food sources for the microbes on skin. Um, and it works. That works way better. So I mean, human sebum is just really, really weird stuff. And it's weird for a very tight reason, and it's to feed the right microbes on your skin. So we produce a fatty acid. It makes up like a third of the fatty acids on your skin, called sapienic acid. It's the dominant fatty acid on human skin. And it's called sapienic acid because it occurs nowhere else on Earth. So no other mammal produces meaningful levels of sapienic acid, and yet we do. So what's going on there? We carry this whole gene set up to produce this really weird acid. Like, why would we do that? So when we started testing, we find it's very highly toxic to Staph aureus. So one of the most
Mm.
common, like if you get eczema, 80% of the time it's because of a Staph aureus overgrowth. And the sapienic acid is obliterating staph, no problems. So it's yeah, when we start messing with skin too much, like harsh strip and replace, like this idea that you double cleanse, strip with harsh surfactants, that you're losing key fatty acids on skin, and we
Mm.
can't replace them. I mean, as far as I know, we're the only company in the world doing sapienic acid as a prebiotic for skin, because it's very, very difficult to produce.
Wow.
So, and expensive, unfortunately. Yeah. So I think we think about prebiotics a little strangely when it comes to skin. I think everybody thinks, oh, you can just throw onion and add it and it's fine. I think we've got to get to grips with what the microbes on skin are actually eating, and provide them with the right substrates. Yeah.
Mm. I suppose it's more about like biodiversity, right? The diversity of what you're consuming, what you're putting on, the
Yeah.
bacteria that are coming into contact with your skin.
Yeah, I mean, you can get diversity by shoving your face in a toilet. You're going to get massive diversity. It's diversity within the right group, right? Like
Mm.
you're after these key partners that hang around on skin. You want these things to get in there, colonize, set up shop, and provide a function in the long term. You don't want to, you can get diversities quick and easy. It's just which diversity. So as we age and our immune system gets less active, you actually see diversity on skin increasing because your immune system's just not that good at grooming who's there anymore,
Mm.
right? So yeah, diversity can be good if they're key partners, and diversity can be really bad if it means that your immune system's not doing its job. So it's a strange thing. The microbiome thinking was at the beginning all about diversity, and now it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. We need to be careful here. Let's just think about diversity through the right lens. Yeah,
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 definitely.
yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
So, topically, what can we do for the microbiome?
Easy on the surfactants. So if something foams wildly, you probably want to back off a little. So we advocate no cleansing in the morning and very mild cleansing in the evening, just to remove makeup and sunscreen and whatever else. So easy on on the surfactants. Feed the microbiome. So if you have a product that has petrochemicals, it's supplying oil, but it's not supplying food, right? Like those whatever nutrients were in that oil were used millions of years ago, and it's done now. There's no, I mean, there are some rare microbes that can digest it, but what you want to do is supply good quality nutrient to feed the microbiome. And I guess that's got to be highly curated. You know, they're pretty picky eaters. um, yeah, I guess some sun exposure, some healthy sun exposure, very short, obviously no burning,
Mm-hmm.
but non-commensal microbes are actually very sensitive to UV. So you can knock out some of the bad guys with some sun exposure, 10 minutes, that sort of thing. So that's a worthwhile consideration. Um, yeah, trying to think of other things. Mild preservative levels. Obviously, if you've got a product that's got really harsh preservatives in it
Mm.
and you apply it to your skin, you're going to be doing some damage there. Um, yeah. So I think we're seeing in the industry a lot of posturing around the microbiome, but not a lot of deep thinking around the microbiome. So yeah, I think it's time that the marketing departments took a step back and let the R&D guys go, hey, this is actually what we need to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think that in the future it'll be 100% clear that the you know that the skin microbiome is as important to overall health as the gut microbiome, and I think it'll start getting respected as such. Yeah,
We hope so.
yeah.
I mean, I think you're definitely helping make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody knows you need healthy microbes for a healthy gut. I think there'll come a time when everybody knows that you need healthy microbes for a healthy skin. Simple. Yeah.
What would you say some of the biggest lifestyle choices that affect the microbiome and the skin gut connection?
Yeah. I was mentioning diet obviously is the biggie. Antibiotic use
That's a big one.
is a big one. So it's really hard to sit here and think back that less than 100 years ago, antibiotics didn't exist.
Mm.
And you know we've done charts to see production. It's literally logarithmic. So yeah, I mean, you ask about what I did with my kids. Those guys had to get really, really sick before they got an antibiotic. If I didn't feel it was life threatening, you know, they didn't get them. And it's very clear now that the skin microbiome recovers much more slowly than the other microbiomes. It's difficult to think, but when you take an oral antibiotic, your gut microbiome starts bouncing back pretty quickly, like 2 weeks, somewhere around there. The skin microbiome takes 3 months
Wow.
because so a lot of your gut microbes actually produce antibiotics to fight against each other and that sort of thing. So there's some antibiotic resistance and there's a quite quick turnaround on skin in the pilosebaceous unit. C. acnes lives in there. They're used to dominating that space, and they're not used to fighting that much.
Mm.
So in each pore, you have one strain of C. acnes that dominates, and now all of a sudden the space around that pore is taken over by an antibiotic. It doesn't go well after that. And it takes a long time to recover. So it's what we see a lot in people that have taken an oral antibiotic is a bloom of malassezia, which is a yeast on skin.
Mm.
And we're seeing that more and more in acne cases as well, especially like rebound acne cases, where in your pilosebaceous unit, you should have just C. acnes. Now you start seeing malassezia as like 20-30%, which is not normal. It shouldn't be there.
Wow.
So you're having these yeast blooms because the yeasts aren't affected by antibiotics. So it's a kind of, yeah, that's a
That's
lifestyle
crazy.
factor. That's a really big deal. Yeah.
I think in the Western world we're terrible for antibiotics. I know that we're like antimicrobial resistance has gone crazy in lots of parts of the world actually. But yeah, I mean I think that's a really big one. I mean I think for women as well, when you take an antibiotic, the chance of you getting thrush, for example, are huge, which should go to show like how much it throws that bacteria out of whack.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
limiting antibiotic exposure, not just for the skin, but for like the population's health, I think is super important.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, there's some technologies that just don't seem to be catching on. One of them's phage technology, which would be another step above antibiotics. And I think the day is coming when you would sequence to find the actual problem, and then you would
Mm,
apply a phage that will knock out just that problem. Um,
wow.
so the phage is it's a virus that predates on bacteria, and if you know what you're after, then a phage is a beautiful technique to knock out just the strain that
So
you're
you can kind of
after.
like precisely go in and get rid of whatever is causing you the problem, rather
Yeah,
than just killing
exactly.
all the bacteria in your body.
Yeah, a little bit more like a little bit more sensible way of dealing with a rebellion rather than carpet bombing everybody. Yeah.
I love that analogy. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
When it comes to S,
Yeah.
um, how are you currently working with professionals now? What can they obviously they can supply your skincare, use your skincare within facials, but is there a personalized element that is happening right now?
So we do offer a sequencing service so
Mm-hmm.
that people can sequence their skin microbiomes. But yeah, more and more we're working in the medical aesthetic space.
Mm,
So a lot of the medical aesthetics treatments damage the skin microbiome quite substantially. We've just finished a study on microneedling where so from baseline straight after microneedling you see this huge jump in diversity, and remember I said diversity is not always good.
mm,
So you see this huge jump in diversity, and then after 7 days after, we thought the microbiome would have recovered, but it hadn't actually. So in the
wow.
test group, the microneedling had definitely had a negative impact on the skin microbiome, much lower diversity, some missing species. So we're using live biotherapeutics straight after the microneedling treatment to get control of the space, to help wound healing, and to help collagen deposition. So those are our targets. So we're much more in the medical aesthetic space, laser, microneedling, and it's gaining control using a good microbe to cover completely so that you get competitive exclusion, and it reduces risk for the client, reduces downtime for the client, and improves the results. So it's a yeah, I think it's a space that'll grow really quickly. So I'm expecting it to be quite a busy space over the next few years as this tech starts really showing its value.
Mm.
But yeah, we welcome the competition.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be targeting that now. Are there any other aesthetic treatments? So you mentioned laser there. What are the kind of microbiome concerns, or are there any issues that might with the microbiome that laser can cause?
So, I mean, they've shown very deleterious effects with Erbium YAG and a few others. And I mean, not picking any of them out in particular, but I mean, think about it. I mean, you're really, I mean, it's super hot and
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
damage, right? So, of course, there's an immediate drop in the total numbers of microbes there. And again, we feel like we can help, and there's good research in the academic literature to show that it would be a sensible thing to replace those microbes with a beneficial one, at least to cover
Mm,
you until your microbiome comes back. And it looks like it takes around 19 days or so for microbial recovery after a laser treatment.
wow.
So if you can use live biotherapeutics to help in the interim, it obviously make a massive difference. I mean, your microbiome has to recover, and the sooner it does, the better. So, yeah. And then, yeah, other things like chemical peels. I mean,
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
strips away a large chunk of the microbiome. And again, if you can get control with a good biotherapeutic in the interim, it has a beneficial result overall. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, they've shown this. I mean, if you go into the academic literature, there's tons and tons to show that live Lactobacillus bifido and a few other bacteria, that those accelerate wound healing. And these are all
Mm,
wounds, right? They
right,
either
yeah.
puncture wounds in the form of microneedling, or they're all heat or chemical burns effectively, and with peels. Yeah.
That's such a good
Yeah.
point. I'd never really thought about that. Like, obviously, there's huge benefits to a lot of these aesthetic treatments, but naturally they are killing the bacteria in your skin. So if you can incorporate that into a treatment, then
Definitely, yeah. So I mean, we're applying the live products pretty much immediately after treatment. As soon as the bleeding's under control, you apply, yeah, and we're getting really good results.
what about with other topicals? How does bacteria work with other topical treatments?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we that's difficult to answer. It depends on the preservative levels, and it depends
Got
on
it.
what's in those other products. Look, a lot of the time, just prior to these medical aesthetics treatments, there's sterilization of the skin. So you're obliterating pretty much everything to start off with. And what you really need to do is get coverage again. You need some decent microbial protection so that when the bad guys arrive, they've at least got a bit of competition. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking like 5 to 10 years ahead, where do you see this research in microbiome, skin health going? What's the future?
So we've mentioned shotgun,
Yes.
and I think it's been such a game changer for us. We hung on to 16S sequencing for so long because
Mm,
we'd invested so much in it. And 2 years ago, when we started doing shotgun, oh man, it's been a complete game changer. Just being able to know exactly which strain is doing what. I think you'll start seeing directed therapies around that. I do think it'll be the very high end of the market, though. Um, where, like I said, the price is still prohibitive, but it is coming down and relatively quickly. So I think on the very top end of the market, you'll be able to go, hey, I have perioral dermatitis. Please sequence me. You sequence it. You go, this strain of Staph aureus or this strain of Pseudomonas, and we can knock it out with this exact with this exact phage, or at least then direct the antibiotic in the right direction. So more targeted therapy,
mm-hmm.
something that's a huge focus for us, and we expect to be first to market with this, is a service for therapists or estheticians to offer a skin microbiome transplant.
Whoa.
Yeah. So you've heard about microbiome transplants for gut.
Is
Uh,
that when they take a little bit of someone else's
Yeah,
poop
yeah.
and then
Transfusion.
just Ah.
Okay, so let me explain the let me explain the skin version. So what we're working on is a kit. It'll be a 1 hour procedure. If someone's really battling with a microbe on skin, um, we would knock out the entire microbiome. So we would use a sterilizing agent, a very particular one, to knock out as much of the surface skin microbiome as we
and just
can.
quickly, would that happen on the whole of someone's skin or just a targeted area?
So the initial one is targeting facial skin.
Yeah.
So we would sterilize the whole space. And then we apply a product that contains sapienic acid, amongst other things, to
Mm.
to get the baseline under control. And then we use a gel to collect microbial from the same person, because not necessarily from someone else. That gets a little bit more difficult.
Mm.
But if you've got healthy skin, for example, between your shoulder blades, we would collect
Mm.
microbes from between your shoulder blades and apply those to skin. So the advantages are that your immune system recognizes those microbes. And that you're getting diversity back on skin, and they're the right microbes for you, right? Because the
Yeah.
skin's healthy. So yeah, it's a same person microbiome transplant. You take the microbiome from somewhere that's healthy, and you implant it on the troubled skin. Yeah,
That's fascinating.
yeah. And there are still, I mean, this is such an amazing space. There's so much going on research wise that it's, yeah, I can't wait for the next 5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll have to have you back and
Yeah.
see what's going on in 5 to 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Trevor, thank you so much for joining us today. That was absolutely fascinating, and I hope you enjoyed being on the podcast.
Thanks, Casey. It was good fun.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe, and follow us on professionalbeauty.uk.